Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. We're your hosts, Quaviondre Williams.
And Daquon Wilson.
So let's get into this week's conversation. What's hot on the table this week?
According to NPR, following the news of the new African American Studies AP course, Florida State's Education Department swiftly rejected the class. This, of course, isn't Florida's first time in the news for blocking education. Under DeSantis, the state passed his Stop Woke Act, which lets parents sue teachers and school districts over violating limitations the state sets for how race is taught in classrooms, and the Parental Rights in Education Act, also known as the Don't Say Gay Bill, which forbids discussion of sexual orientation and gender identity for certain elementary school students. Democratic State Representative Fentrice Driscoll said at a news conference in Tallahassee, quote, "By rejecting the African American History Pilot Program, Ron DeSantis has clearly demonstrated that he wants to dictate whose history does and doesn't belong," end quotes. Ben Crump, a high-profile civil rights attorney, said that he will file the lawsuit on behalf of the three students who are prepared to sue Florida Governor Ron DeSantis if DeSantis does not allow the course to be taught in the state. So, Andre, that begs the question, what are your thoughts on the situation?
It's unsurprising.
Right.
Especially considering what we know of Ron DeSantis as a politician. In all of his actions, he stated quite clearly that if you're not white, straight, and Christian, then he is not advocating or protecting you. And it's just as simple as that. As far as this situation, Ron DeSantis blocking this course makes sense with his platform as it does with several conservative Republican platforms. We all know that knowledge is power, and we also know that many of our history books are not written with BIPOC people in mind. As far as white history books are concerned, Black history started with slavery, and racism ended with the civil rights movement after Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. And it's more sad than anything because many of these Republican platforms want to erase the history of this country. They want to gloss over the atrocities that their white ancestors have committed to BIPOC people while also continuing to benefit from all the privileges that said atrocities have granted them. This might be a little strange, Daquon, when I say this, but stick with me, bitch. You know that song from High School Musical, the "Don't Mess with the Status Quo"? Well, that's kind of how I see a lot of Republican platforms. Like, there are all of these people wanting to simply exist in their authentic selves, but Republicans are the ones jumping in and essentially singing the lyrics of the song, "No, no, no. Stick to the stuff you know. If you want to be cool, follow one simple rule. Don't mess with the fuck." But like, by blocking, this African American Studies course, DeSantis is, along with so many other things that he's done, pushing back against the strides of progress we've made to, quote, stick to the status quo. He wants to keep white, straight Christians at the top and kick everybody else down to the bottom of the stairs of equality and equity. He's banking on the idea that less information will create some sort of model community where the minorities and the underprivileged will just accept that they will never be equal and give up. And thankfully, we've come far enough to realize that silence doesn't just make people like Ron DeSantis stop. Apathy has never been the solution to stop people like him. So I'm glad that Ben Crump and those three students are suing DeSantis. And I hope that they not only get him to remove the block on this course, but swiftly gather his ass because he stays trying it on a regular basis. But Daquon, I'm going to pass it back to you, bitch. What are your thoughts?
Girl, it's nothing new. I feel like it was like a year ago we were talking about Ron DeSantis doing the "Don't Say Gay" bill and the parental, like all of this bullshit, and I'm like, he stayed on the bullshit.
Here
He
we go
really
again.
does. But absolutely, this is a part of his plan. This is what he wants to happen. He wants to make sure that people aren't educated because let's be real. The more ignorant people are, the more he can get away with. The more people
Mhm.
who will be on his side because
Mhm.
when you know the real truth, you know who are the, villains in this story, quote unquote. And, this goes right along with what he's still doing to this day. Like, I remember reading an article the other day how he's going through different, colleges in Florida and trying to gut their diversity, equity, and inclusion
Mhm.
departments and replacing them with merits, equality, and color blindness.
Mm.
And an AP African American Studies class is going to tell you why that's such a problem because let's be real, we need equity, not equality. We
Mhm.
need to be conscious of how race plays a part in our society, not some bullshit colorblindness. And girl, that's a choice. So this is absolutely just another play in his playbook. He's continuing to, do things like this because he wants to make sure that his people are at the top all the time. And I am so sick of it. I am tired of being tired. I am tired of this man being in office. This situation has made me want to go to law school, get me a law degree, and join
Right.
in on that lawsuit because I want to gather him myself.
Yeah, and also Daquon, I don't think this campaign against education is ever going to stop because people like Ron DeSantis never go away because bad people will never stop existing. Like, no matter how much progress we make in the world, evil will continue working to try to dismantle it all. Like, look at the overturning of Roe versus Wade, for example. So many people thought that there was no way that the Supreme Court would actually overturn something that's been in effect for nearly 50 years. And I also believe that this wasn't going to happen. That is until it fully did. With a swivel of pen to paper, the Supreme Court stripped people with uteruses from the right to bodily autonomy. It's it just lit a fire under my ass and reminded me that the fight for progress may have victories along the way, but there will never be a time where the fight is completely over. That is the product of fantasies and movies and TV shows and stuff like that try to sell us that because evil doesn't just give up because you're tired or because the battle is seemingly won. No, it retreats, licks its wounds, and redoubles its efforts for the next battle. So there will always be a new battle on the horizon, a new bill that threatens the rights of marginalized people, another Ron DeSantis who wants to keep people that don't look, believe, and act in accordance to how he sees fit oppressed. That's just the way of our world. All that we can do as people who want to see progress and change happen and remain in effect is keep fighting the good fight. We have to stay ready so we don't have to get ready. Why? Because we have to fucking do. Like we really have to. Because ignoring the bad people doesn't stop them. But in bringing light and fighting against it, maybe just maybe we can keep the bad from totally overtaking the good. But what about you, Daquan? Do you think that this campaign against education is ever going to stop?
Absolutely not. As long as our society is still how it is, our political structures are still how it is, this is never going to stop. This is always going every issue is always going to be this tug of war. We may get an inch here, they're going to pull us back. It's going to be
Mhm.
this tug of war forever until we are able to really dismantle these systems and create something that is truly for the people, that is truly for the truth. Because let's be real, they are censoring the truth. They don't
Yes.
want you to know what really happened in this country because that's going to paint them in a bad light. That's going to paint the people who came before them in a bad light. and so on and so forth. So they're always going to be trying their best to make sure that you are in the dark for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, we are talking about Ron DeSantis in Florida right now, but this is not a Florida problem. This is
Mm-hmm.
happening across the United States. Across the United States, there are, people passing anti-trans bills. There are people
Mm-hmm.
calling out CRT, critical race theory, and trying to stop wokeness in their state.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's happening in Republican controlled places all across this country. And even when the Republicans don't control a place, they're still trying to get this stuff to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always going to happen. And we just need to fight the good fight. We need to make sure that there are resources available to people. We need to continue to be telling the true history of our country, the true, the truth in general about what this world is, how it was built, and what needs to happen for us to really be free, for us to really find progress, and to finally be an equitable society. We got to continue this fight, and that comes from education, that comes from disseminating all types of information, that comes from organizing. Even with something like the platform of TikTok, there's a lot of Republicans that are trying to ban TikTok on college campuses or government devices because they knew that people on TikTok were organizing against them. So they're going to do anything to stay in power. Whatever it takes, they will do. And we have seen that there is no, low blow to them. There's nothing that's
Mm-mm.
beneath them. They will
Mm-mm.
take every low blow in the book.
Mm-hmm. And I fully agree. I think that also there's just this understanding that we have to have where, we can celebrate the victories that we have along the way. We can celebrate the good things that do happen, but never, never take your eyes off the enemy.
Absolutely. Celebrate the wins, but don't get complacent.
Period.